Welcome back. We're learning about the sustainability of our great industry. We've talked with experts about what sustainability means in the pre-harvest sector, and now I'd like to turn it over to the folks from the post-harvest side of things. And joining us in the studio is Dr. Bo Reagan. He's the Senior Vice President of Research, Education, and Innovation for NCBA, a contractor to the Beef Checkoff. We also have Jessica Drosty-Yagan, Director of Sustainable Supply Chain with McDonald's USA. Craig Mello, he's the Risk Manager for AgriBeef. And last but not least, Cindy Chan Phillips. She's a registered dietitian and the Director of Nutrition Education for the New York Beef Industry Council. Welcome to the show. Bo, I want to start with you. We talked a lot about some of the issues in the pre-harvest sector. Are the issues and concerns of the post-harvest sector similar or different?
No, they're similar from the standpoint that when we look at the different sectors, they're all part of the sustainability chain. I think one way that a lot of people looked at sustainability, they've tried to isolate one sector. But what we've done in this study, in this true assessment, we go all the way from the cow-calf, as we mentioned earlier, going all the way to the consumer. So the only thing that's really different is the inputs from the standpoint, say our packers use more energy, they may be getting their energy from another source than what we do on the farms pre-harvest side. We use more packaging materials there. So from the standpoint of if there's any differences, it's only looking at the inputs that we have going in for that sector.
And Craig, maybe you could share specifically what kind of data was collected.
Still, when I turned through this process, I was really surprised by the amount of detail and that took place through this data collection process. Being directly involved, the typical wastewater, air emissions, water emissions, or some of the key indicators. But we went to the level of looking at how much adhesive went into a box, or actually how many sheets of toilet paper are on a roll of toilet paper. It's just an indication of the level of detail that went into this.
And Bo, maybe you could share just a few of the highlights of the results relative to the post-harvest sector.
Well, we looked at the last 7 years from 2005 to 2011 on the post-harvest side, and we really saw some significant changes there, from the standpoint of energy, from the standpoint of water emissions. And one of the big ones that really caught my attention was from the standpoint of transportation. As we were starting this study, we looked at some data from the 70s, and it said back then we were transporting about 175 pounds of fat and bone from each carcass down the road back then. Today, we're transporting less than 4 pounds. So again, that will give you a little feel for some of the significant differences and changes we're finding.
And Craig, what are some of the factors that have contributed to the improvements in the packing sector?
I'll give you a few examples. Looking back from the 70s to today, we've reduced our water emissions by 71% through a process of water reclamation back into our plants. Another good example would be is the recapturing of our biogas that has reduced our energy use by 18%.
And Jessica, I know McDonald's is really committed to sustainability. Tell us, what do you believe McDonald's efforts in this area of sustainability have meant to the improvements the beef industry has made?
I hope we've reflected well upon the beef industry. We certainly serve a lot of beef, and we've put a lot of effort into sustainability. We really try to look at sustainability in terms of how can we grow our business by making a positive impact on society. And there's a lot of ways we can do that. I'll give you one example, and that is, we have 14,000 restaurants more or less in the United States, and of course we use a lot of energy or electricity in those restaurants to cook things like hamburgers. It's really a win-win where we can grow our business, reduce costs, reduce electricity, as well as improve our environmental footprint at the same time. And there's many more examples like that.
Well, and maybe you share some more of those. I'm interested, why is this so important at the food service sector?
It's really critically important to the food service sector. I mean, this is really about serving food, right? And we have to have food. Ray Kroc really built McDonald's on the foundation of what he called the three-legged stool. the corporation, the franchisees, and the supply chain. And really, when you look at the supply chain, it's not just about our direct suppliers for McDonald's, but it's the entire value chain that produces that food that we need to serve to our customers. So when we look at sustainability, it's really about the future strength and viability of every part of that value chain back to the farmers, to the processors, and everybody in between.
And Cindy, from a consumer perspective, do you think they're paying attention to this type of research, and will this type of an assessment help us get our message across to consumers?
Well, consumers are paying attention to where the food comes from, and also the fact that the food is raised in a sustainable way. And I think this life cycle analysis helps the consumers understand that beef is a sustainable food. And as important as the results, that we need to stress that this is a very comprehensive scope of looking at from farm to plate, as well as the transparency nature of this project. And we need to communicate these important aspects with the consumers and help them understand that they can play a very important role in sustainability by reducing food waste. American consumers waste about 40 million tons of food, every year. And one good place to start is portion control. Portion control, along with a balanced diet and physical activity, good for your health. So portion control is good for the individuals as well as good for the environment.
And Jessica, how would you respond from your customers' perspective? Do you think they're paying attention to this kind of work?
I think there's no doubt that our customers want to know more and more about where their food comes from and how it's produced. They might not get into the nitty-gritty detail of a life cycle assessment, like the folks here would, but it's really important that those types of data and research exist to have those proof points behind the trust and transparency this type of communication can provide.
And Craig, what are some of the biggest improvement opportunities from your segment of the industry?
We recognize the importance of our relationships with our supplier and vendors and the efficiencies that could be had from production standpoint, our impact from a regulatory standpoint, the importance of implementation of animal welfare program and how that impacts the consumer.
And Jessica, what improvements might you see from a food service perspective?
We have a lot of room for improvement for sure, and we're putting a lot of effort, especially at our restaurant level. So when you think about the food itself, the nutritional aspects of that, the environmental impacts of our restaurants, our employees, our impacts on local communities. So we've got a lot of stuff going on there. But also I wanted to just address our supply chain. And really, it's not technically ours, so to speak, but it's really important to us. And I talked before about the three-legged stool and the importance of the stability of that industry and the sustainability of that industry moving forward. And that's true across the board, across all the food that we need to serve. So I look forward to continuing as part of our work, also collaborating with and supporting the beef industry and other industries along the way.
It's great news. And Cindy, let's not forget about consumers. What improvement opportunities do we have there?
There are many opportunities that consumers can do within the household, including recycling and food composting. But look, not everyone can do food composting, but everyone can reduce food waste. And people are beginning to talk about it, but not enough. But I think the timing is right. Consumers are paying more attention to reducing food waste when the economy is soft. One great opportunity is with engaging the millennials. This is what we know from research. Number one, they are very conscious about the environment. And secondly, they are hungry for information. And thirdly, they need support in the cooking skills. As interesting enough is, according to the Dietary Guideline for Americans 2010, improving cooking skills can be one way to eat healthier. So improving cooking skills can be good for your nutrition as well as reducing food waste as well. I want to mention about my fellow food and nutrition professionals. I want to encourage them to bring awareness, to promote reducing food waste at the household level as part of their nutrition education interaction with the consumers.
That's a great recommendation. But one last question. How does this work position the beef industry in comparison to other food chains in regards to this topic of sustainability?
Well, I think it positions us very well because, as we talked earlier, this is a game changer for sustainability work. If you look at what a lot of the other industries have done, the total focus has been on the environmental side. Where here we've talked about the environment side, the importance of economics, and then we also have the social side. And the reason we did that, as we've talked to stakeholders, what we're finding is that the old definition of sustainability was totally focused on environment. They've moved beyond that now. They're interested in socially what we're doing there. They're certainly interested in the economic side. So again, this is a game changer, and we're really proud that we did the study and we're moving forward.
Well, I appreciate your insight. This really demonstrates the comprehensive nature of this study. When we return, we'll have some final thoughts from each of our panelists regarding sustainability. Stay with us. We'll be right back.